Welcome to the deep dive. As hurricane season really starts to get going, there's a pretty critical development sending some ripples, maybe even shock waves, through the weather community.
Yeah, definitely making waves.
We're focusing today on a really significant shift, something that could fundamentally change how we get our hurricane forecasts.
It's a big one.
So today, we're diving into the abrupt termination of a long-standing and frankly crucial hurricane forecast tool. We're talking about the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, or DMSP.
Right, the DMSP, historically run by both the Department of Defense and NOAA.
Exactly. And this isn't just, losing one weather report. It feels more fundamental, like a key data set just being switched off.
Yeah.
Very suddenly.
That's a good way to put it. The DoD announced it on June 24th, that Tuesday, said they'd immediately stop processing and sending out the real-time microwave data from their 3 DMSP satellites.
Immediately. Wow.
Pretty much. And then NOAA formalized it quickly, just 2 days later on the 26th, confirming that by the following Monday, June 30th, that data feed would be gone permanently.
So this deep dive is really about understanding what that means, right? Especially for the, tens of millions of Americans in hurricane zones?
Precisely. What are the immediate implications of pulling the plug like this? That's what we need to unpack.
Okay. So our mission today, extract the key insights from the sources we have. Why did this happen? What's the likely impact, especially now during hurricane season? And what does it really mean for people needing to prepare?
Let's get into it.
That timeline you mentioned is just incredibly tight, isn't it? DOD on Tuesday, NOAA follows up Wednesday, and data's gone by Monday.
Yeah, less than a week's notice, effectively.
It really seems to have caught a lot of people by surprise.
It certainly did. We heard reports that officials at the National Hurricane Center were caught off guard, which really tells you something about how sudden this was.
So what was the official reason? Why the sudden stop?
The primary reason the DoD cited, security concerns.
Security concerns.
Yeah.
With the weather satellite.
Well, specifically with the ground systems processing the data. Mike Buchanan, he's a meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service, explained that the DMSP uses, and I quote, a pretty old operating system.
Ah, okay. Legacy systems.
Exactly. And he pointed out that these older systems, well, they pose more and more vulnerabilities when you attach them to other networks. So the decision was made to just turn off the processing to mitigate that risk.
Makes sense from a security standpoint, I suppose. But still abrupt.
Yeah, and Buchanan also noted this kind of thing happens quite frequently in the scientific world as technology ages out.
It's interesting context. So it's a known issue with older tech, but the timing still feels disruptive for forecasters. Stepping back, though, what is this DMSP microwave data? Why is it considered so vital? Not just, helpful, but essential.
Right. So the key is the instrument on these satellites. It's called the Special Sensor Microwave Imager Sounder, or SSMIS.
SSMIS.
Got it. And what makes its data indispensable, really, is its unique ability to peer beneath the clouds.
Peer beneath the clouds. Okay, how does it do that?
Think of it like an MRI for a hurricane. You know how visible or infrared satellites mostly just show you the cloud tops?
Yeah, the surface view.
Exactly. Well, microwave data penetrates those clouds. It gives forecasters a detailed look at the hurricane's inner core, its structure, how it's changing inside.
Ah, I see. So you can see the engine of the storm, not just the fluffy white tot.
Precisely. And this is incredibly important, especially at night when the visible satellites are, basically blind. It helps them see crucial details they'd otherwise miss.
Okay, so it's like night vision for the storm structure. That sounds incredibly powerful. So how specifically does that help forecasters?
Well, first off, this DMSP data provides about half of all the microwave satellite scans forecasters get.
Half? That's a huge chunk.
It is. And they use it to precisely position the center of the storm to fix its location. That initial fix is critical for accurate track forecasts down the line.
Right. Small errors early on can become big errors later.
Exactly. Plus, it's foundational for some of the more advanced tools, like AI-driven intensity estimators.
AI tools. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, things like neural networks. One example is called DMINT, the Deep Multispectral Intensity of TC's estimator. These systems learn to analyze complex data patterns to predict storm strength.
Okay.
And they rely heavily on this specific type of microwave data from DMSP. Without it, well, James Franklin, a retired NHC branch chief, he warned about an increased risk of a sunrise surprise.
A sunrise surprise? That sounds ominous. What does that mean practically?
It means a storm could rapidly intensify overnight, maybe go from a Cat 1 to a Cat 3, and forecasters might only realize the full extent of it when the sun comes up and they get visible imagery again.
Which means significantly less warning time for people in the path.
Exactly. Hours less time to prepare or evacuate. And like we said, even small errors in figuring out where the storm is right now can lead to really outsized forecast error in where it's going days later. That initial positioning is just so key.
Wow. Okay, so given how important this sounds, what was NOAA's official response? Did they acknowledge these concerns?
Well, NOAA issued a statement trying to reassure people. They said DMSP is just a single data set in a robust suite of hurricane forecasting and modeling tools.
A single data set. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're saying they have other tools.
Yeah, they pointed to things like the GOES satellites, the JPSS polar satellites, European MEDOP satellites, even the Hurricane Hunter aircraft. They insist these ensure the gold standard weather forecasting the American people deserve.
And did they mention a specific replacement for this microwave capability?
They did. They highlighted an instrument on their JPSS satellites called an ATMS, the Advanced Technology Microwave Sounder. They called it the source of the richest, most accurate satellite weather observations available.
Okay, so they're saying, don't worry, we have this other microwave sensor, ATMS, but is it really an equivalent replacement?
Well, this is where you see a really sharp disagreement. Experts like Michael Lowry, who broke the initial story, strongly dispute that ATMS is adequate.
Why not?
Lowry argues ATMS is actually far inferior to hurricane forecasters than the SSMIS instrument that's being discontinued. The main problem, he says the ATMS data quality degrades considerably on its edges.
Degrades on the edges.
Meaning, unless the satellite passes directly over the hurricane, gets a perfect bullseye, which he says is rare, the data from the wider part of the scan isn't very useful for pinpointing the storm center or estimating its intensity. It gets pixelated and blurry, essentially.
So unless it's a direct hit, the picture isn't clear enough.
That's the argument. He says this makes it useless for most operational hurricane forecasts.
Is there evidence for that difference? Like side-by-side comparisons?
Yes, actually. Images compared from a past storm, Hurricane Eric, really illustrate it. The SSMIS image provided a strikingly detailed look at Eric's inner core structure. You could see the eye wall clearly.
Okay, and the ATMS image?
The ATMS image from a similar pass just showed a collection of pixelated colors. Not really useful for finding the exact center or judging the storm's strength based on that image alone.
Wow, that's a stark difference. So losing SSMIS means potentially much larger gaps in getting that clear, detailed microwave view.
Exactly. You're effectively cutting the frequency of useful microwave scans in half. Instead of getting a good look every few hours, the gap could stretch to as much as every 12 hours.
12 hours. A lot can happen with a hurricane in 12 hours.
A lot can happen, especially rapid intensification. So missing that significantly increases the odds of those sunrise surprises and just generally reduces that critical warning lead time for coastal residents. It's not just academic, it translates to less time for people to react.
Let's talk a bit about the DMSP program itself. It sounds like it's been around a while.
Oh yeah, a very long history. It actually started way back in 1962 as a classified military program.
Classified, really?
Yep. Control was only transferred over to NOAA in 1998, partly as a cost-saving measure.
And has it been smooth sailing, so to speak, or have there been issues with these satellites?
Definitely not smooth sailing. They've had quite a few significant challenges over the decades. Several satellites have failed in orbit, sometimes quite dramatically. There were in-orbit explosions or major failures involving DMSP-11 back in 2004, DMSP-F13 in 2015.
Explosions, what caused those?
Often issues like battery ruptures or problems with residual fuel. And another one, DMSP-5D2F14, had a failure as recently as December 2024. So these are aging platforms with known vulnerabilities.
And didn't Congress make a decision about the program's future a while back, too?
They did. Back in 2015, Congress actually voted to terminate the whole DMSP program.
Terminated. But the satellites were still operating.
Well, they decided not to fund future launches. And perhaps more surprisingly, they even decided to scrap an already built backup satellite, DMSP-5D3F20, just to save storage costs.
Wow. So they scrapped a ready-to-go backup.
That's right, which basically left only the older, aging satellites flying, with no new replacements planned within that specific program.
Okay, so the program was already sort of winding down, but the data feed was still active until now. Is there a successor system planned?
Yes, despite ending DMSP, the Department of Defense has been working on a next-generation system. The U.S. Space Force successfully launched the first of the new weather system, follow-on microwave satellites WSF-M, for short back on April 11th, 2024.
WSFM. Okay, so there is new hardware in space.
There is, and it's designed specifically to replace and improve upon the key capabilities of DMSP, like measuring ocean surface winds and, crucially, tropical cyclone intensity using microwave sensors.
That sounds like exactly what's needed.
Sure.
So, problem solved. Is that data flowing now?
Well, that's the catch. The data from this new WSFM satellite is not currently available to forecasters.
It's not. It launched back in April. Why isn't it being used, especially now?
Yeah, that's the critical gap. Even after a successful launch, there's always a significant period of calibration, validation, testing, making sure the data is accurate, and then integrating it into the operational forecasting models.
And how long does that usually take?
It can take quite a while, sometimes many months, even a year or more, depending on the complexity. And right now, it's just unclear when that WSFM data will be ready and fully integrated.
So we have this period, potentially stretching through this hurricane season or beyond, where the old system is turned off and the new one isn't ready yet.
That's precisely the situation. A critical data gap exists right now. Forecasters are left without this essential type of microwave data until WSFM is fully online and plugged into their workflow. The bridge, as you said, isn't quite built yet.
Given all this, the sudden cutoff, the data gap, the potential impact, it's probably no surprise the public reaction has been strong.
Not surprising at all. Especially in hurricane-prone areas like Florida, you look at social media and there's definitely widespread alarm and frustration.
What kind of things are people saying?
Well, you see comments ranging from just, we are so screwed, to calling the decision things like catastrophic level of madness or even literally fucking insane logic. Pretty strong language.
Yeah, that's definitely strong. Yeah. What are the main fears being expressed?
A lot of it echoes the expert concerns, fears about pop-up hurricanes, storms strengthening rapidly without enough warning. Basically, less time to prepare for impact.
And are people attributing blame anywhere? Or suggesting reasons beyond the official security concerns?
Oh, absolutely. Online discussions definitely delve into political angles. Some link the decision to specific figures or parties. You see mentions of Trump, Republicans, Governor DeSantis, often alleging government incompetence or maybe a disregard for public safety.
Any other theories floating around?
Yeah, some even suggest it might be part of an effort to privatize weather forecasting, maybe make citizens pay for data that taxpayers originally funded, though there's no direct evidence presented for that in what we reviewed.
Right, but it definitely shows the level of anxiety and maybe mistrust that surfaces when a critical public safety system seems compromised.
It really underscores how much communities rely on accurate, timely forecasts, and how deeply unsettling it is when that capability feels threatened or suddenly reduced.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this deep dive up. We've looked at the sudden end of this DMSP satellite data feed. The DoD cited security issues with old systems.
Right, aging tech vulnerabilities.
And while a successor, WSFM, has launched, its data isn't ready yet,
creating this immediate and potentially quite dangerous gap in that crucial microwave data for hurricane forecasting.
Which has experts really sounding the alarm, doesn't it? Worries about missing rapid intensification, less warning time for coastal communities.
Yeah, the warnings are pretty clear from the forecasting community. This isn't ideal timing, to say the least.
This whole situation really highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between maintaining essential older systems and transitioning to new technology.
It absolutely does. And it underscores how critical, careful planning and seamless execution are for these transitions, especially when public safety hangs in the balance. You need foresight.
It's not just about flipping a switch on or off.
Not at all. It's about managing the handover without dropping the ball, especially a ball this important. It's a complex dance. Innovation, security, operational needs.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is seeing the ripple effect. What looks like a technical decision about an old operating system suddenly raises fundamental questions about risk, preparedness, and responsibility. In a world that needs instant data for safety, what happens when a key stream just gets cut off like that? And who's ultimately responsible for making sure that safety net stays strong and resilient for everyone?
That's a really potent question to think about.
Definitely something to mull over, especially as we head deeper into hurricane season. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.